comes in and he welcomes into his office and he goes, "Can I get you anything before we meet?" A whiskey. And he goes, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. He goes, so that's a no. Oh, when are you ready?
We're doing the Candace Owens thing. You guys are just talking.
Oh my!
One of you has to go. Oh, are we rolling?
That's what I just did. Are we rolling? All right. Well, welcome everybody to today's Christen Connection. We're here at the property of this terrific family who's donated the space and time to host today's chat. I don't know who they are, but they maintain a wonderful, wonderful abode and property. We're here for an exciting conversation with the world-renowned and famous Katie Hopkins, who comes to us all the way from Great Britain. And we are excited to have her in Nevada County and really all across America for the next couple of months, speaking to us, the former colonists here in America, about how to do it right and what we're facing with regards to the Biden administration at the macro level, at the local level, what we're experiencing here with the Newsom administration, our lockdowns here in California, which have obviously failed, resulting in Gavin Newsom facing a recall for only the second time that's occurred in the last 150 years in California history. So we're excited to have Katie here today and talk about a wide-ranging set of issues. And Katie, thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. It's an exciting time to be in California. You know, I think first up, I'm a foreigner and an outsider, and you've kicked our British asses out of here before. So, you know, I'm cognizant of my place in America and what it means. But this is a brilliant time to be here. I guess I'm here for two reasons. One, to thank everybody involved in the recall of Gavin Newsom, because it's been something, it's just a phenomenon. I just love it that 2.2 million people, it's not signatures on a page at all. It sent a message to governors that they're not beyond reproach. It's our side, the grassroots, working perfectly together in a way that no one thought possible. And it's also, as I've moved across the state, connecting the different dots of the lady who worked the stall outside the Bass Pro Shop to the guy who's coordinating the publicity effort of it, to people who signed up and are hopeful. Like, it's an amazing thing. But my main message here in America right now is that you're different to us. America is different to the UK, and as much as we've fallen, and we're falling so fast now, you guys are still, if I cut you open, you still bleed the Constitution. So wherever there is hope, it's always going to be here. America remains the land of hope, even though it feels bleak at the moment.
Yes, indeed. The English, you know, in many ways gave us the basis for a lot of our fundamental rights that our founders took from the English Constitution and from, you know, when you had your glorious revolution, when Cromwell, you know, led the fight against the king who wouldn't bow down to Parliament and the people. You've certainly given us in many ways a lot of what we have, but we codified it into a constitution and had those negative rights placed in the Constitution about what government could not do to us. A lot of people on the left want to have positive rights put into the Constitution about what government should do for us. Of course, we know how that always has worked out throughout history. But the English, sadly, seem to have, because they haven't had those rights codified, they are easily taken away. The freedom of speech, obviously, to own firearms. We've seen people jailed for simply voicing opposition to mask mandates or vaccines, or in the case of what I often refer to as Islamic terrorism, simply holding people to account for the radical language that seeks to undermine Great Britain. And when they point it out, they're the ones that are arrested, not the people who stand up in Trafalgar Square and shout down Britain. So speak to, sadly, what's occurred in England that you would hope doesn't happen here.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You have this constitution written. So there's two things I travel with. I travel with my passport and I travel with the constitution. And I care about the constitution more than my British passport right now. So right now, for me, it's illegal to leave the country. It's illegal to be more than 7 miles from my home. It's illegal in the UK to go on holiday. my children have to be tested every day before they're allowed to go to school. 2 of my children opted out of their own volition, not from my being parental, because it's no good doing that when you have teenagers. 2 of them opted out, and because they opted out of testing, they have to wear a sticker on their uniform to show that they're unclean. So I don't know how close we want to go to history before parallels are going to smack people in the face. But my children have to wear a sticker to show their classmates that they don't respect their classmates. So I say these things, they sound like dramatic examples, but I think they're just everyday examples to me. And that's the difference, is that if you imagine it like a slide, like a water slide, we've slid down that slide real fast because there was no friction to hold us back. Whereas you have these rocks, damn it, here in this country, and your founding fathers or your presidents are carved into them, right? You have this book that tells you the limitations of the state. You have this stuff that's stopping you in free fall that means you won't be like us in that way. You know, we had a thing during lockdown where the government told us the state told us, Boris Johnson told us to stand on the doorstep and clap at the sky in support of socialised healthcare, which of course the left want here. And they did it. My neighbours did it. They stood on their doorstep at 8 o'clock and clapped at the sky. And then, of course, they started reporting on Mrs. Jones at number 12, who didn't. And I hope that when she gets sick, she doesn't get treated. Or I hope that when her kids are sick, they're turned away. This is the sort of madness that I come from.
We all need to work to make Orwell fiction again, I think is the saying. Right. And it's so true. If you read who was a socialist but saw the results of Stalinist communism and what, in its extreme form, this authoritarianism leads to. Yeah. And he saw it. And you read Animal Farm, you read 1984, you do start to think this was written 1945, so 75 years ago, but it's like today, because it really points to a human condition that transcends time and place, right?
Yeah, right.
It's not just the British or the Germans or the Stalinists in Russia. It's possible at all times and all places.
Yeah, and it's the perverse enjoyment of the relinquishing of control. So not for people maybe like myself or you or good people that listen to you, but the relinquishing of all personal control and responsibility is something that's been perversely enjoyed by the British. This idea that, I'm not in charge of anything about myself anymore. The state will fund me. The state will tell me what to do. The state will tell me which circle to stand on, what to put on my face, when to clap at the sky. And actually they sort of enjoy that. And there's been this perverse enjoyment of, there's hotlines in the UK so that you can report on your neighbours.
Hotlines.
So if you see more than 3 people go into a home, you can report on your neighbours, and people they've almost salivated at the opportunity to do that. And so that's a sort of darkness. And then I think other listeners that you have will understand, typically there's one person in a family group that enjoys that role of being in our country, the COVID police or the lockdown police. And everybody has this brother or sister or someone who's trying to push the vaccine or trying to stop an elderly, my mum and dad, stop them leaving their home. It's a really odd dynamic, but it exists constantly and pervasively through time, I think.
My brothers and sisters that we adopted when South Vietnam fell to the communists, and they came over and were part of the boat people who fled, 2 million people, for some strange reason wanted to flee the glories of communism. We adopted them, and 2 of them still live here. 2 of them moved to Australia to be close to other family members. And what they're telling me is going on in Australia is actually quite horrific. Mothers being arrested for simply being outside without masks on or protesting their children not being able to go to school. And again, these are our Anglo brothers and sisters who come from the same rule of law tradition and the same Western civilization tradition, yet they so easily relinquish these rights that, fortunately, it just seems, to your point, we in America, there is this group, and sadly it's not more, but it is a significant, if not a majority, at least a significant minority of people who refuse to bend the knee, and who refuse to give away their agency, their individual prerogative and rights, and be seen as anything other than individuals. And it is very American. It's very interesting. I wish it were more transcended around the world. You see it in Hong Kong. You do see it with a lot of the people that are suffering in Hong Kong, which is awesome. Sadly, they're not being supported by some of our leaders. But I think to your point, it really is a uniquely American thing that I as much as I travel, I can't really pinpoint why that is. Why?
Because you got schooled with it from an early age. You got born with it. Like we have, or I have, respect for the royal family. It's hard to articulate. It's hard to explain to an outsider. They make no sense. It's sort of, superficial family that just have wealth for no reason. But actually, you get born with this sort of intrinsic respect for a monarchy. I have that. My father schooled it into us. You guys get born with an intrinsic sense of freedom. And it does relate to owning a weapon, and it does relate to your constitution, but there's something in you that's different. And I think our job, because it's easy to talk of the darkness, our job is to help elevate the light. And that's what I see in America as well. If I see a guy with a tattoo, now, I know he's probably not going to be big into masks, and I have a friend, and we can work together to change a few other people. If I'm getting on a plane, I pull down my mask until I sit down, because I'm just going to keep showing people. In Denver, you're supposed to wait in line for an elevator because you're not allowed two people.
Right.
I was just waiting in line. I went, do you know what? And I just said, I don't give a shit. Can I come in the lift elevator? And they went, yeah, we don't give a damn either. You come on in. And so I think our way has to be, we have to be the people that are showing defiance, respectful defiance, and opening a door. And you find so much of that here. It's glorious. I love it.
Well, that's encouraging to hear. I think we get down on ourselves, and we do tend to focus on the darkness.
Yes.
Instead of the fact that in many ways we do have first world problems. Not that the threat of diminishing rights isn't there. Absolutely it is. But we've got to keep it in perspective.
Yes.
There's so much to be thankful for. There's so much we've been blessed with. And it behooves us to fight that. It's not just on auto control and autopilot that it's just going to continue. It requires our eternal vigilance. It requires the next generation to be aware, educated, willing to fight. And for our little time and moment here in Nevada County, bringing it down to the local level, a number of us have done that. We have said, no, this doesn't sound right. And you've been able to spend some time with us here over the last year, bringing it down to the local level, away from more of the macro world and American level. What words of encouragement and as you call it, this bright, happy future that we can create for ourselves. What words do you have for us here at the local level, what we can do?
Oh, Nevada County is the best. I love it. I love that when I tell people I'm going to California, next leg, they're always like, ooh, the belly of the beast. And I'm like, you don't know. Like, if you want to find the strongest of conservatives, you're either going to go to Colorado Springs, where women have 8 children and wear a weapon on their thigh and are generally pretty hot. Or you're going to come to California because you guys are the strongest conservatives I know. You guys are the state that's pulled off the recall of Gavin Newsom. It's unbelievable. You guys have the restaurant owners here that are working together in order to say, actually, you're not going to tell us what to do. And the minute you start standing together, this is the joy of the thing. Most people try and, for when I'm arrested or when I have things taken from me or I'm got out or whatever with the police at home, people try and preserve themselves for one more day, right? They move themselves away from you so that they'll be okay for one more day, right? One more day. Whereas in California, in Nevada County, you haven't done that. Restaurant owners have gone, no, we'll sign up together. And they're not looking for one more day. They're saying we're going to change this trajectory back to freedom. That's amazing. So in a way, as a foreigner, as an outsider, I think that's the value I can help bring, is that when you're being down on yourselves, I'm the one that can say, no, this is an awesome place. You guys are doing brilliant work. And every time someone signs something or goes somewhere or stands on a street intersection with a sign cheering for something, good on you. Good on you for doing something, right? We need more people doing exactly that. One thing. Do one more thing for your county. Because this is a beating heart of strength, I think.
It is, and it's encouraging to see. When we moved here over a decade ago, we sit on 40 acres here, and we were just content to be amongst ourselves, be with our family, live our lives here. My wife works, I work. Of course, we do that. But then we came home, and it was just happy and content to be here. Since the COVID situation began, I've been forced, if you will, to become acquainted with my community.
Get out.
Because I've been outraged at what I've seen coming from the dictates, the ad hominem, the imposition of ad hoc law from a governor who not even going to a legislature, just simply imposing dictates from on high, telling us what we can do to stay open, what we can't do, with no basis in data, empiricism, rationalism, or science, just simply, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. Schools should be closed, which is madness. It's child abuse. So I've been forced to get out and get to know my community better.
You've been forced to go out and socialize
seriously,
with people.
it has been wonderful. I've gotten to know so many people who I was sitting 2 nights ago with a table full of friends who I did not know a year ago, who've been amongst me, but I did not know them. And I just said, but for this, I wouldn't have gotten to know you guys.
Yeah, but you know, when I was here during my last visit,
Right.
you and others were people we were completely locked down. The UK was locked down. You were locked down here still. But you and others were prepared to host things in your own spaces in order for people to gather. And we saw it then, like the joy of people being together, right? And I think that's exactly it now. When people ask me, well, what can I do? There are so many people out there who are struggling so hard right now, you know, kids who lost their schoolmates because they committed suicide for lockdown. And so my thing is always, you can do one more thing by just being super kind to one person, you know, by being that person in the elevator that says, well, sure, come on in if you want to come in, right? You can change the dynamic of a person's day just by offering one bit of kindness in a world that seems angry, like a lot of angry eyeballs. And that's one of the great things. If you haven't got your mask on, you're able to smile at people. And they look at you like you're a bit weird. Like kids are looking at me like I'm odd because they can see my face. Or maybe it's my British teeth. I mean, it could be that. But my point is that one bit of kindness right now goes a really, really long way. And our side is typically the side of being kind.
And happier.
And happier. We're just nicer people. And people can share that every day and bring someone with us. Find us one more. Yeah.
There's actually studies that show that those who consider themselves, however you want to label it, conservatives, on the right, whatever, tend to be happier. They're just happier people.
Yeah.
And I find that true because to this point of, you know, what we're doing here locally, nationally, and around the world with so many threats by authoritarianism, you know, what the Chinese are doing to the, you know, to the Muslims in their Western provinces, to the Christian churches in their around their whole country, the Hong Kong protesters, what's happening in Great Britain, in Germany. There's all kinds of things we're not hearing about, terrible things that are the government's imposing on their people that you tend not to hear about. Or here, I think what we do is we lose sight of the fact that if we understand and operate from an understanding that this is all temporary, we are here for a relatively short period of time. Death does come to us all, and we're not going to avoid it. So enjoy that time while you're here. Live your life as freely and as enjoyably as possible. Don't pretend that you can hide from it and stay in your home for 2 years and pretend to avoid the threat of sickness or death. And those of us that tend to understand that there isn't just this materialistic plane of existence, that there is a metaphysical plane beyond this, and that we're here, and while we're here, it's to enjoy each other and help each other and have community and enjoy our freedoms, not to quiver in our corners and just hope that the threat passes away and when it does, oh, it avoided me. I'm so thankful. It's like, no, you're doing this all wrong.
It's so true. That it's like a Netflix series or a box set where people are like, spoiler, we're all going to die one day, right? Like breaking news.
None of us get out of here alive.
Yeah. So I think, bring it right down to local level is so imperative. And it's what's so great about Nevada County is that, sure, there's some really big problems in the world and there's some really big issues over there and over there. But if you think about it in terms of your local county, you are sorting things out here to make things better for the community you live in. That's super powerful in itself. And then I think this idea that you just live your life as big as you can, and that's because my naughtier instinct is to just keep encouraging people to push out and live as big as you can. And I think for some of us as well, I had big, severe epilepsy and it was supposed to kill me a long time ago. So I'm on extra time already. And that's a really great way of handling a pandemic. I'm not sort of prescribing that for other people, like get near death and then you feel better. But what I mean is it's not actually that frightening. Once you reconcile with the end, like any additional time you get is pretty good. So we've all survived this. So you kind of reconciled with the end. So now you can just keep going. So yeah, I think it's good. My sort of basic recommendation for everybody in Nevada County is to get out there, smear yourself up against everybody, and live, laugh, and love, because that's the very best way to live your life, just as free as you can be.
Amen. No, it's well said. So you are spending some time here. You've come in from, you spoke of Colorado Springs. We lived there for 9.5 years. Love Colorado Springs. It was a great place to raise our young children. And you had it right with regards to the people. You've been there. You're coming here for a while, North and South California. What are some of your other plans?
Yes. Well, I had to break in because I'm not allowed to be here. I'm not allowed to leave my home. British people are banned from being here because we have a very special kind of Ebola where I come from, which means you're screwed actually later. If you make it past the end of the week, I'd be quite surprised in every sense. And I think wherever I end up next, it looks like it will be Florida, I think. But I kind of throw myself to the wind on these voyages of mine. I have a small suitcase and I go wherever the wind takes me. And generally that's just about lifting people up. And having just come from LA, people call that the belly of the beast. Doing 2 nights of stand-up in LA, 100 people a night, the tickets sold before we put them on sale. We're realizing that this is the stuff we need. We need to get back and make each other feel better because it's been hard, right? I was in DC for the installation of Biden. 1 million great Americans came to that and had a marvelous day, peaceful, beautiful, lovely, respectful to each other and the police. The insurrection was a completely different moment. But people have had a moment of grieving, and now we have to bring it again because we have to bring it for 2022, and we certainly have to bring it for 2024. And the recall, to me, is the foundation for bringing it again next year.
It is indeed. And it reminds me, William Butler Yeats said that the worst are full of passionate intensity while the best lack all conviction. And I think sometimes we tend to model that, and it's unfortunate because the worst, they seem to never tire. They seem to never take a rest. They are always, as one of your great statesmen, Winston Churchill, said, you don't negotiate with a lion when your head is in its mouth. There were people in Britain who were just willing to get along with the Nazis. They viewed their conquest as inevitable, and we need to get along with these people. And Winston Churchill said, we need to take Hitler at his word. And Churchill said, you don't negotiate with the lion when your head is in its mouth.
It's true.
And it was so powerful, but it's so true. And we tend to want to negotiate with lions when our head is in its mouth instead of saying, no, I'm going to get my head out of this mouth and I'm going to fight you. I may die. I may, to be, hyperbolic. I may not make it, but I'm not going to bend the knee.
But it's not hyperbolic. It's not. I've sat with women just before when we were sure, and Trump won, that they knew they lived in Portland and they knew the mob was going to come. The mob that was going to come to Minneapolis, Portland, wherever.
Portland, Oregon.
Yeah,
my hometown.
Yeah, and she said, let them come. They'll come on my property, let them come. But they're not going to leave my property. So it isn't, people have already signed up for whatever the end is. For me too, and many of us, we're already there. We're going to fight this thing right through, whenever that comes. Old age, doesn't have that much of an allure anyway. Doubling continents was never a look I was going for. So I'm all in, and I think many of us are. So I'm super optimistic, super positive, and I know for certain that this remains the greatest nation on earth, and you will remain the land of the free.
Well, it's good to end on a positive note. You have an event tonight that you're going to speak to a couple of hundred people at, which is exciting here in the area.
Yes.
So we're excited about that. We appreciate you taking time to discuss these issues, with us, with me, and it's always good to see you.
Oh. And
it's been terrific to get to know you. I always followed you from afar, for years.
Stalker, like in a stalker capacity.
No, not in a stalker. Just in a someone who appreciates brave, strong people. And to get to know you over the past year and see you in person and see you in action when you really don't have to be doing any of this. After all, quote unquote, you don't have anything at stake. But of course, as you indicated, you do, because if we go down, Well, then who's going to save
We
us?
can't.
China?
Yeah, I know,
Russia?
exactly. There is sort of two sides to this. One is like positive, optimistic me going, you can do this. Another one's like me going, please, guys, we really need you to do this. So
We need you
so
to.
I need you, and my children
Yes.
need all of you to do this. So my final parting words would be, in the words of the recall Newsom petitioners,
Yes.
just get me one more. Get one more person, do one kind thing, find one person that you can make feel better. Just get us one more, because then we will win.
There's always something more you can do is a good motto to live by. There's always something more. When you're content, when you're happy, when you're satisfied, there's always something else you can do. My wife tells a story of when she's an Air Force pilot, and in the South Pacific, they're not hurricanes. They are, I'm trying to think of the exact description for them, but one hit the Philippines. And when the Filipino people were looking for salvation, for help, because they'd been devastated, they would get on their roofs and hold up signs.
It's like a typhoon.
Typhoon, thank you.
It's the English language thing. I'm pretty good at
Goodness. And they held up signs, all right, but they weren't in Mandarin. They were in English, because they weren't in Russian, because they knew that the planes that would be overflying them were U.S. Air Force planes who would be seeking, okay, here's where people are, here's where they need help. And, these were the Filipino people. And they were holding up signs in English for us to help them. And it's really a good story. And she likes to tell this about when she was interviewed once and said, why are you doing what you're doing? And she goes, well, one of the reasons is because without us, there's just people in the world who would continue to suffer. And I thought that's powerful. And it kind of gets to your point as an outsider looking in. Well, you don't have any interest in what happens here, but in reality, everybody
really
has an interest.
I just hold it up. My little sign I'd be holding up would just be like in just better spelling with better pronunciation. That's all.
Sounding much more
Grasp of
proper.
words.
Well, Katie, thanks for joining us today and sharing what it is you're doing, your hopefulness, your perspective, which is unique, but I think powerful. And thank you for doing all you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And thank you to Nevada County. And thank you to great Californians for recalling Newsom. Just the best.
Terrific. All right, have a terrific day. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.